The second I walked into that courtroom, I felt it, the quiet hum of anticipation that always comes right before a storm. Across the aisle sat Marla Whitford, the HOA president who'd spent 6 months trying to bully me off my own land. Her posture was perfect, her power suit sharp, her clipboard raised like a trophy. She looked at me and smiled like she'd already won. She had no idea what was coming. The judge called the court to order, and all eyes were on me. When she asked if I had a lawyer, I rose slowly. "I'll be representing myself," I said, calm and deliberate. Her lawyer's confident grin faltered. The smirk he'd worn like armor slipped for just a moment, because he didn't know I had spent 35 years as a property law attorney. Eating lawyers like him for breakfast. Not yet, at least. But the real story, the reason we were all here, didn't start in that courtroom. It started on my ranch. I bought Cedar Hollow Ranch for peace. 100 acres. Open skies.
No neighbors. No HOA nonsense.
Just me, my horses, and the occasional visit from my grandkids. It was paradise. Until the day Marla Whitford drove up in her pristine SUV, clipboard raised, and stepped onto my gate like she owned it. "We need a trail easement through your property," she announced, clipped and cold, like she was demanding a latte instead of trespassing. I set down my hammer and walked over slowly. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "this is private property." Her smile tightened. "The community believes it benefits everyone." I didn't laugh. I just shook my head. "Great for your community, but not for my land."
"No."
Her eyes flickered with something darker than disappointment. That was the first time I realized how far she'd go. And I'd only just begun to see the real Marla Whitford. Letters started arriving, demanding I attend board meetings I had no obligation to attend. Complaints to the county about fake code violations, forcing me to waste entire afternoons dealing with inspectors who always shook their heads. Then came the community walks. Groups of Willowbrook Estates residents lined up along my fence, cameras out, staring at me like I was some zoo animal. I tried ignoring it at first. For the first few months, I thought maybe she'll give up. But she never gave up. And then, it got personal. One April morning, I found the back gate cut clean through, tire tracks snaking deep into my property, and bright orange trail markers hammered into my trees. My blood ran cold. This wasn't harassment anymore. It was an invasion. I spent the afternoon tearing out the markers and installing security cameras. And that night I watched the footage.
2:07 a.m.
There she was, tracksuit,
Bolt kiters,
leading 2 HOA board members onto my land, planting markers like they were claiming territory. I poured a stiff drink, sat back, and smiled. Finally, I had all I needed. The next morning, I hired a welding crew. A solid steel gate, reinforced with concrete posts. No one was getting through again. Then, my attorney sent Marla a cease and desist. Her response? A lawsuit. By Friday afternoon, I had in my hands a legal complaint demanding I remove all barriers immediately, pay $50,000 in damages, cover their legal fees. I read it twice. I considered laughing. Then I remembered I could eat this lawsuit for breakfast. So I dusted off my bar license, filed a counterclaim for trespass, harassment, and defamation, and settled in for the showdown I knew would be spectacular. The courtroom was packed. Marla strutted in with her entourage. 2 board members, her lawyer, and someone scribbling for the neighborhood newsletter. Even her HOA president pin glittered under the fluorescent lights. Judge Morrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, I'd appeared before countless times, took her seat. She didn't recognize me at first. But when I stated my credentials, I saw it, the flicker of recognition, and maybe a hint of worry. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, faint nod. "Welcome back to my courtroom." Marla's lawyer, a young man with too much enthusiasm and too little experience, jumped to his feet. He spun a tale about me being a recluse, selfishly holding the community hostage. Words waved in the air like smoke. No evidence, just bravado. I didn't waste time with theatrics. I laid out the deeds, surveys, and sworn statements proving no easement had ever existed. I placed each document carefully on the table. The smirk slipped off Marla's face. Her jaw dropped. Her lawyer stumbled. I continued. And here, I said, pulling a manila folder from my briefcase, I have security footage showing Ms. Whitford trespassing 6 times on my property. The judge raised an eyebrow. I handed over printed stills of her cutting locks, driving past gates, and planting unauthorized markers. And I wasn't done. Then came Exhibit C. I held up a flash drive. Your Honor, this contains a recording of a phone conversation between Ms. Whitford and another board member. I played it aloud. I don't care if he owns it. I'll make his life hell until he gives in. The courtroom went dead silent. Marla shrieked, "That's private." The judge leaned forward, calm but sharp. "Is that your voice?" She hesitated. It was over. Her lawyer tried to recover, stammering, mumbling. The damage had been done. The judge methodically dismantled every one of her claims, each one thrown out with prejudice, meaning she could never bring them back. Then she granted my countersuit, trespass damages, legal fees, permanent restraining order. Marla's face was the exact shade of disbelief you'd expect when reality finally hits. Her voice cracked. "I'm the HOA president. I have authority." The judge's gavel slammed down like thunder. Silence. And then, the knockout blow. The judge forwarded the case to the district attorney for criminal trespass charges. Marla's expression collapsed completely. 3 days later, the HOA removed her unanimously. 2 months later, she pled guilty to misdemeanor trespass. 12 months probation. 500 hours of community service. Forever barred from HOA involvement. 6 months after that, I gave a keynote speech at the state law school. Cedar Hollow Ranch versus Marla Whitford. A case study in HOA abuse. Security footage. Court transcripts. Every detail. The lecture went viral among legal students. Her dream of power of a connected trail system buried under the weight of her restraining order and criminal record. Meanwhile, my land was peaceful again. The $20,000 in damages? Donated to a legal aid foundation helping homeowners fight abusive HOAs. Funny thing about power, abuse it long enough, and it circles back in ways you never expect. I think about that sometimes. Sitting on the porch of my ranch, horses grazing in the distance. How quickly arrogance can turn into humiliation. How quiet patience can outlast force. And how one voice, calm but deliberate, can make a difference when the law is on your side. Because at the end of the day, peace isn't given, it's taken. And sometimes it's defended in court.